maqamat, you have like easy to play from, like keys like D, C, open strings like G, because you want to get those microtones and third scale degrees the right way. And sometimes if you're playing like a maqam from like C sharp, you're gonna get some like dicey areas on the board. And you know, I'm not an oud virtuoso. Like there's a lot of great oud players out there that can do all sorts of stuff, but it's a great instrument for like vocal accompaniment. A lot of people that compose and write music, they use the oud to do that. A lot of like most pop music singers now, they either play oud, it's kind of similar to guitar, so it's used to compose a lot. And it's tuned, you know, I have my strings here, they're double courses, so each course has like 2 pegs here. This shape is like, they don't know why the shape happened, like, you know, if it was a human foot or something, that like they, you know, stretch it over. There's all sorts of kind of like theories as to what it is. Okay, so let me go through like a minor feel or like a minor maqam called Nahawand, which is this maqam right here. And you tell me what it sounds like to you. What does that sound like? Yeah, the minor mode, yeah. So this mode here is called Nahawand, which is, you know, again, you know, flat 3, flat 6, and 7. Sometimes when you descend, you can flatten the 7. So this is kind of a part of a taqsim, right? Somebody might start and just highlight a few notes. One of the main things is giving the note spaces. So when you're playing, like, kind of, you can go around notes, and that has a lot of like emotive things. So, you know, improvising or composing in general, it's just like there's a lot of like emotional content to what you're writing. If you're gonna be doing like the normal stepwise composition or leaps between part of the scale. So a lot of times you want to move to notes or approach them in like, you know, these like step motions. So, you know, if I'm gonna go to the 5, to like the dominant, and just start my taqsim from there. I could start my taqsim from usually the root or the 5th. It's a good, safe point to start your taqsim. So highlight either the first, the most common thing, with like the 7th, just like a leading tone to it. And then for this particular, I just like went to the 2nd scale degree here, left it there, and then just came back to the 2nd scale degree. So it's kind of like sentences, stories. You start with something, you end, you go to the next neighborhood, you leave it there, then you come back, and then like on the 2nd. So I'm doing 1, 2, 3 with stops in between within that taqsim. And I had like a chromatic thing going. Then sort of a sequence with leading with a leading tone on each scale degree. So But I didn't just do that. I kind of did some sort of a theme around it. So you see what those points I was telling you about, kind of approaching around the notes or playing sequences around the notes, around the major note of the scales. Because those scales by themselves, they have a lot. They could say a lot if you just play it straight through, like. So, just not really having to do much, just play through the scale. A lot of the music is pretty much written that way for most of the parts. If it's like normal harmonic tonal music, it's going to be most likely just going through the notes. With the taqsim, of course, now you have these different, I guess, like stylistic things, like just runs or things you could do, like for the oud. A lot of time with the picking, you can have a lot of the. Like things like a rhythm. Ornamentation is important, like turns around all of the notes as much as that adds a lot of stuff to it. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question. So
Yeah.
I play percussion, and when we hold notes, we usually tend to like meter them.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing on oud?
Very good. Yes. So yeah, haven't talked about rhythm yet. We mostly talk about like pitch and everything. And that's one of the things about doing this is that you're not thinking of a metric pulse. You're thinking of musical phrasing that's unmetric. It's unmetric musical phrasing most of the time, and it can happen over a beat. As soon as it does that, then it's taqsim on the beat, taqsim that is metric, like with a particular. You can have both ways. This kind of like subjective, like one person just doing a taqsim, they're not really playing any particular pulse unless they do a groove, like within their taqsim. So you can do like a groove. Does anyone know about Indian, like classical Indian, Hindustani music? There's different parts of. So the raga performances are like entirely improvisatory. Most of it is. But what's structured is their progression through like the first, middle part, and third part. The first part is called tala, which is this like long, drony notes of unmetric improvising.
Alap.
Hmm?
Alap.
Alap, I'm sorry, not tala. Tala is the rhythmic. Alap, this non-metric improvising part. Then there's the jala, right? The jala second part, you start to play like more runs with the rhythm. The rhythm comes in, you start to play with like metric things. Still, a lot of it is improvisatory. With the taqsim, it's not that way. It's just a different world of, it's just a different musical culture. Taqsim can come like in the middle of a set, in the beginning of a concert. Like the context for playing a taqsim on stage would be either like between songs when everybody just like stops, or like changing the mics, or there's a break on stage and people would play a taqsim. Or if it's like in the middle of a song, somebody like wrote out like a taqsim, they could like do like a solo within a song. Or a lot of people learning the improvising, they would write kind of like you would do in jazz, like you would write those licks that you would learn and then just kind of like really get them down and then put things together. It's similar in that way. There's only so much you could do with this type of music that a lot of things just become very like kind of predictable. There's a certain degree of predictability to this type of playing, but for the creative, it gives you a lot of possibilities, because there's a lot of things you can do with it. with improvising. Gives you a lot of possibilities for scales that are interesting. So just getting those down, like there's 7, 8 scales down, it just adds to your library of things you know as a musician. They're always very good to know from like a kind of a world music perspective. That's why it's getting like world music stuff in your musicianship is really helpful, because it adds to your musicianship, it adds to the things you know already about different cultures. You can adapt these things to your playing, sound more original with what you're doing. People like appreciate that. So so taking this minor improvising, so sometimes you can highlight the entire maqam while you're playing. So now this maqam, Nahawand in C, from C, you have a lot of modulation points from it, because it's a very common maqam. One of them is you can play another maqam from C that's called Ras. That gives a completely different feeling. It's almost like going to a major scale, but staying with the same tonic, and doing this maqam called Rast. So, and Rast sounds like this. Where the third scale degree is not flattened, but it's a little bit sharper. It's half flat. So E half flat. So you have C, D, instead of E natural, we have an E natural. You have, and this is the sound that's like, oh wow, okay, that's kind of like, if you're not used to hearing that, it's gonna clash in your ear. But that opens up this whole like feel of rust now that is gonna happen. So this is raw, so it could get completely different than the minor mode, and then just you could do pretty much same things that I was doing before. This one, on the road usually you could become like more rhythmic, do more constantly rhythmic things. So with the maqam improvising, you can be sort of spaced out, like this kind of style of improvising. Here and started exploring this different maqam called Nakriz, which sounds like this. And the natural 6 and flat 7. So sharp 4, flat 3. And that seems to have a dominant, that G can be a good center for exploring that maqam. Yep.
So you mentioned that you were born in Syria and then spent time in the United States.
Mhm.
In reference to your ears and your understanding of these intricacies, can you speak on when did that development happen? Was it was it something that you were just just exposed to from birth and didn't really know about it in Syria, or did you have to take later in life in the States take more literal time to study these things?
The taqsim, no, it's just the oral history, just
Okay.
like people just knowing melodies from, I mean,
I guess I'm going more with the
Yeah.
with the microtonal specifically too.
The microtonal.
And how that contradicts all of Western music theory and everything. So
yeah. It's just a different way of experiencing and expressing music. Like just to do, like there's tendencies, less. You might not find things in Western music that exist in Arabic, and vice versa. If you think about the way people gravitate toward like blues modes and modes that are like in jazz, and then in kind of like the Western pop, or not pop, but the Western music perspective, like that. People can feel those. They feel when they're good. They feel like when they don't sound good. Like people have those. It's the same thing with this Middle Eastern microtonal music. Like people just kind of grow up with them. It doesn't mean that you can't learn it, but it has to be a very immersive kind of experience for you to like play in this field. Let's say. I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Because it's just like it's a musical language. Just like vocabularies of it, the way you're constructing it, the way you're like, this is like, we're getting here to like the realm of poetry here, right? Because here we're like, okay, let's see how we put these words and like letters together, and like what is actually expressive. And that's very subjective. Like that's like the territory where you have to like kind of get into the way the culture feels and thinks about language and how they express their way through the language. So, this realm, but also, it's amazing, people actually gravitate toward those things without even any prior knowledge with it. So, it's not to say that the feel is something that people are born with. It's just like that arrangement of the environment around them and this music kind of spontaneously sounding like that, and people would just understand it. But that doesn't mean that if you're not of this musical culture, you can't feel those things. You still feel them. You might not play them, but you still like feel that they sound interesting, or maybe not, because it's also very subjective. You might be like, okay, that sounds like shit. I'm sorry. But yeah, some people can. I've met some people that way. People just don't like certain type of music. Most music people though, they do, like they understand it, and they it's like usually people that are like just superficial listening to something. They might be like, that sounds like Halloween to me. I don't like it. Something like that. Or like something scary. I don't know.